the very fact that the Torah says Miketz Shnosayim Yomim, at the end of 2 years, is obviously indicative of something. Why is it saying this? And if you look at the very first Rashi, no, not the very first Rashi, I'm sorry. It basically, he says that, Rashi says the reason why he waited 2 years, it says at the end of the previous parsha, is because Yosef sort of believed that the salvation was going to come through this butler, this chief butler. He relied heavily on it, and therefore he had to wait another 2 years.
Because he forgot about him.
I'm sorry?
He forgot about Yosef.
Why did he forget? Hashem made him forget, right? He forget. Yeah, he forget about it because Rashi says over here, because he relied on him to remember him. Okay, and in other words, it was fair enough. You might think that Yosef could have thought, well, this guy, like, as if to say, this guy is definitely going to remember me. Because, why? Because he was in shtuk, and I kind of made sure that he knew that he's going to be out of shtuk. And the other guy, yes, the guy got killed, just like I said. So how could he forget that? There's no ways he's definitely going to remember me. So somebody asked me this week, he said, how is it possible that Yosef, what did he do wrong here? At the end of the day, surely was he relying on what? Was he relying on
a man?
Yes, but you know, this chap said to me, aren't you supposed to do things in the normal realm of things? You're supposed to do the natural order of things, right? You don't just rely on miracles.
But also, he didn't have anything to do with releasing him. He just forecast it. It wasn't up to him to release him. So the butler probably thought, well, okay, it was nice of him to tell me, but it could have happened and it needn't have happened. It wasn't a dumb thing just because he forecast it. He didn't know that his dream would definitely come true.
No, but after they did definitely come through, yes, it's fair to say that since they did come true so accurately, that he could have said to Pharaoh, wow, the reason I got, it's amazing. He could have told them there at that time, there and then. Yeah. But, this is unfortunately, you saw later on. This guy was not particularly savory sort of a chap, it seems. Even the Sarah Mashke, because when he mentioned Yosef, he mentioned him in a very derogatory way. He called him a slave, a Hebrew, this Jew boy, lowlife, was in prison. He didn't even mention him in a positive light at all. So, this was a bit of a, you saw he was a bit of a, what do I say? I don't say a nudnik. He was wasn't a nice piece of work, shall we say? And this is so. But again, back to the question. This chap was asking. He said, "Look, Yosef was surely he was just. We are required to do things in the realms of nature. So to mention this, to mention it and ask him to remember him to get him out of there. Surely he was just taking advantage of what he perceived to be a natural possibility of getting out. Okay, yeah. So what did he do wrong? So what was wrong with that?
Did he daven as well?
Did he daven as well? So, yeah. So here we're on page 268 when you get down to it. Yeah. So here we come to a very interesting thing. Actually, the Rebbe mentions in this Chumash, and he says a fascinating thing. You see, when you have belief in Hashem, yes, we know we have bitachon. Yes, bitachon means trust in Hashem. Now, what does it mean to have trust in Hashem? What does it actually mean? person could mean, what is the difference between, for example, faith and trust? Faith and trust. Well, the commentaries explain that faith, that trust is something that you trust Hashem is going to make things turn out the way you want them.
Is that like relying?
Well, yes, bitachon. Well, bitachon in the modern Hebrew, it's security. Yeah, call the bitachon, call security. In other words, you're secure in the knowledge that Hashem is going to do things the way you want them to happen. Yes, I'm not talking about things. I mean, we're talking about in a kosher way, not a non-kosher. You know, don't say, Hashem is going to give me non-kosher food. I mean that we're talking about things that a person wants and are okay and are kosher, right? So you have bitachon, you have trust, and why will Hashem do that? Because in a sense, subconsciously, even your soul, what your soul is desiring and wanting, He also wants. Hashem also wants. Okay. What is emunah? Emunah is faith. Faith is a different thing. Faith is if things turn out the way you didn't quite want or anticipate or hope, a person can think, so that then you have to have emunah. You have to come, you have to say, look, Hashem wanted something better, even greater for me. Right? That is emunah. So one is what is it? It's called ipso facto and post facto. One is before the fact and one is after the fact. Post facto, right? After the event, you're supposed to have emunah. If things did not work out well, or well in the way you had in mind, right? So now we come to Yosef. When we come to bitachon again, trust, the way Hashem can save you, let's say, or make things work out. How will Hashem work things out for you in the way you want them to do? Well, He could do it in any way. There's many, many ways Hashem could do it. He's infinite, right? He's infinite. He doesn't have to do it in the way that you think He's going to do it. You think He's going to do it this way, that way, the other way, the other way. That's none of your business, how He's going to do it. He will do it the way He wants. Because, right? Now, Yosef, he was the problem. I'm going to close the door.
Sorry, it's just...
Sorry. He is going to do it the way. Now, so Yosef thinks, these two guys coming in, friends close with the Paro, close with the head of state, close with the king. They're there. They're going to get out. Right. His mind's working. I see what's going on here. Very nice. Nice one, Hashem. Good one. Yeah. Thanks. I've got this. I'll see what the plan is. I got it. Good. Nice one. That was the slight problem. That he's a little bit too complacent and a little bit over-reliant on how he thinks the solution and the salvation is going to come.
We're speaking about
Yosef. Yeah, Yosef is a little bit too assured that this is precisely the salvation. And in a sense, he's asking Hashem to, so to speak, read the script the way he understands. That's right. Now, it's a bit of a, hello, hi, sorry, good morning. So, it's a bit of it's like everything else, it's a bit of a delicate balancing act. On the one hand, you have to have trust, and Hashem's going to work it out. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be all good. It's going to be all good. It's going to work out exactly the way you want it. On the other hand, you're not supposed to read the script for Hashem. You're not supposed to say how you think Hashem's going to want it to turn out. So Yosef could have said that. I guess what he should have said is, he should have said to himself, or what he could have said to himself, is that it can work out this way. It could work out this way. It might work out this way. It might not work out this way. It might work out in another way. Why does it have to say that it's going to have to work out this way? That it seems was the problem. He wasn't assured of himself. On the contrary, it's not himself he was assured of. He was assured of his own interpretation of what was going to happen. I mean, the fact is, he was right, wasn't he? He was actually right. That the salvation did happen that way through the guy. But the point is, it could have happened other ways. And the fact is that he was so assured that it would happen that way. That way, he had to be in prison for another 2 years.
Oh, that's okay.
That is the problem. That was the consequence.
And why the butler forgot.
I don't say the punishment. It was the consequence because he said, "Oh, like this is a no-brainer. This guy's going to remember me because look what I did for him. I saved his life. I saved his life. He's going to remember me. He's going to go to the king, and it's all going to. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Finished. Right." And that is, in fact, what happened. But that didn't have to happen that way. The fact that he saw that and he relied on that, right? That was the problem. That's basically what he says in the very last of last week's parasha, right? It was the very last Rashi. But why did the butler forget him? Precisely because he relied on the fact that he would remember, and that Hashem said that. Well, I'll teach you a little lesson here, sir. Well, that he doesn't have to remember. Nobody has to remember. Nothing has to be anything. I'll tell you what happens, and I'll show you what happens.
So what did the butler do less than the baker?
I know you have a general. It's funny.
When you see these,
why did he get the good dream?
Crimes of a stone.
Why did he get the good dream? Well, actually, the commentaries do mention. They do say that a fly, for example, sometimes, waiter, there's a fly in my soup. How many jokes do we have about that, right? Well, why do we have the fly in my soup jokes, right? Because flies do occasionally just, they're flying around and boom, they fall. They fall. It's like very unanticipated, yes? So, is it a crime? It's unfortunate it happened to him, but a stone, I think this is a stone in the dough, that's a little bit more of a problem, isn't it? I mean, there was some major flaw there. It wasn't a fly falling in the dough. You have a stone falling in the dough signifies a much greater neglect than waiter, there's a fly in my soup. As the old expression is, so please be quiet. Everyone else will want mine. Yeah. Yeah. So So, but there is an interesting. I always had this question also. Somebody else asked me, why is it that I thought you were going to ask? Okay, so but how did Yosef know to interpret? One was positive and one was good. Yeah. So I struggled with this question. Well, one, of course, is perhaps to realize what we've just said, that perhaps intuitively you would say that this mistake was worse than that mistake. Yeah, you would say it. So it makes sense. A fly in the wine, okay, disgusting, horrible.
Get over it.
But criminally, it's a capital punishment. It happens. It happens. Flies, right? And then, but stones, no. But then, if you look, very interesting. I mean, we're going back over last week, but since we mentioned it, I always wondered, how did he know to give a negative? Why did he give a negative interpretation for this for his dream? It was very similar in a way. I mean, but why should it be negative? So I noticed. I don't know if you get.
If he was meant to be killed, why would he give a positive outcome?
No, but how would he know that?
Well,
how would you know?
The fact that they're eating from his head, maybe he felt like there's something.
No. It doesn't say he was eating from his head. He was eating from the rolls. from the rolls that were on top of his head. There were rolls on top of the head.
In a basket.
Yeah, in a basket with rolls in. And the birds are eating the rolls. Well, could say that's a good sign. That means, yes, it means maybe Paro's going to eat the rolls again, his own rolls. So why does he make it negative? It's. I know he says that in 3 days, off with his head, and he's going to get hung, and they're all going to eat. The birds are going to eat his flesh. That's a bit of a jump, isn't it? Yeah, it's a bit of a jump, isn't it?
Well,
And yes, the front door yet again. We are with maybe.
What is that?
I don't know. What is Amazon's? Sorry, what did you say?
Well, the fact that the man who accepted the explanation of Joseph, he could have killed him for it. He could have said, "Why are you giving me a bad?"
No, he was in prison. He was in prison.
Yeah, but
Joseph was in charge
yeah,
of
but
them.
he was in charge.
Remember, he was in charge. Yeah, they had given him the.
rebel against that. They want
In prison.
no.
Nowadays, you do prison rebellions. Those days, I don't think prison rebellion.
I'm not talking. I'm saying he could have rebuked the. Why are you having this explanation to me? Why are you giving a negative explanation? I mean, when you explain,
Because
it
you know
to
why?
the person who accepted,
Yeah.
they can say, "Well,
You
you're
know,
talking
well,
rubbish." You know what I mean?
okay. Yes, I understand, but perhaps he knew deep down that he was deserving. That's what it says. There's an expression: "Divrei emet nikarim." The words, truthful words, are recognised. They ring true.
Truth prevails.
They ring true, and perhaps this guy realised that he was a bit more of a naughty boy. But what I thought, what I find interesting, when the Sar Hamashkim, if you look on page 264, yeah, page 264.
Pasuk.
What does that mean?
Not 264. We're going down.
Yeah, we're
I
going.
haven't got the same book with the same page numbers.
Oh, sorry. Pasuk Tes, chapter Mem, Parshas Vayeshev.
Thank you.
Tes, what does he say? That the Saramashkim, the chief butler, says, I saw in my dream, right? In my dream, I saw there was a what you call it, a geffen, a vine. Now, if you look further down, verse 16. Verse 16, can you see the bottom of the page? Oh, you see, this is why he didn't argue with him. Because remember what happened, according to Rashi, he says that each one, they dreamt their own dream, yes, and the interpretation of the other dream. So in other words, the baker dreamed about his own dream and the interpretation of the other guy's dream, but not his own interpretation. So that's why Rashi said, how did you know? How did you know it was good? How did this baker know that it was a good interpretation? Because he dreamt of the interpretation that the guy got out of prison and he went back to work. So that, Joseph must be right. That's the answer to your question. So now what did he say? Yosef, he said, now it's my turn. What did he say? Af ani bechalami. Yeah. How would you translate that?
Say again?
Af ani bechalami. What would that normally, how would you translate that? Af ani, me also.
Me too.
Me too. It's the Me Too. This was the original Me Too movement. Me too. I had a dream. Right? That's where it came about. Me too, mate. But what's the usual word that you want to say? Also me in Hebrew. What's the main word? What's the usual?
Gam.
Gam. Exactly. Gamani. What is it? Gamani. So he said gamani. So it doesn't use the word gam. So he used the word af. What does af mean? It means af, even, but it also means something else in Hebrew. No.
But.
It's af. No, that's ach. Af is another word in Hebrew Yes, afapi, although, but it also means anger. Anger, af, right? Vayichar af Hashem, af Hashem, yes? But chari af, it's like anger of, like the nose almost, right? Af is no, right? So af can also mean anger, right? So maybe Yosef, when the guy himself was giving over like af ani b'chalamim, he was like saying that he was almost saying that there's an anger in my dream. The other guy just said b'chalamim, in my dream. I don't know. I haven't seen this written anywhere. I noticed that maybe because what is there is must be a hint that Yosef finds giving him a negative thing. So maybe combining the fact that he did something really a bit more dodgy than the bartender, the chief butler, yes, that he himself was even hinting to his own demise by even the way he said his dream. And therefore, Yosef, as a very smart, intelligent person who understood dreams, took that as a hint and therefore gave him that negative interpretation, which of course the butler had that interpretation. You remember, they dreamed the opposite, so their own dreams. So therefore, when he was saved and the other guy died, he realized, well, both the dreams came true. Amazing, you see. So that's why he didn't question the dream. The guy said, "Boy, he said he must have been a bit of a hard 3 days for that baker, eh? But it could have been that he said, rubbish, doesn't mean anything. We don't know. We don't really know. But here to share with you also a little interesting with the differences of the dreams between Paro and Yosef. Yosef was the main dream, of course, in last week's Parsha. How do we start off with Yosef's dreams? What is the first dream? The first dream was that's Paro.
You mean his own dream?
His own dream, Yosef's dreams. In last week's Parsha.
The sun and the moon were going to bow down.
That's the second dream. That's the second dream. What was it? Ma'alimim alumim. We were binding sheets. Right? So we started off on one level of vegetation, and then we went to a much higher level of spirituality. Sun, the moon, the stars. Paro's dreams start off, what do they start off with? The cows. The cows, right? 7 cows, 7 pack cows. Which they're going, first was going downhill. You start really good, and then it's going downhill.
Then there was
in Judaism, when does the night time start in Judaism? When does a day start in Judaism? At night. Vayhi erev, vayhi voker, right? So our day starts, so to speak, things may start off dark for a Jew, but they get better, they get light. That's it, right? In the non-Jewish world, starts off light. Oh, love it, wonderful, it's sunrise, light. But then things can go downhill pretty quickly. All right, that's it. So you got it, right? So and also you see that he dreamt of something that was on the on the animal world. First, he starts off with animals, and then it goes down to vegetation, because he talks about the thick stalks and the thin stalks. Understand? The grains. We call them stalks.
They were stalks of wheat.
Stalks of wheat, exactly. So there you see a difference in whole attitude. The other thing, of course, is that Yosef, what were they doing in the first part of the dream? The first dream, they were working in the fields. There's work, there's achievement. What was Paro doing in his dream? What was he doing? It's not a trick question. What was he actually doing in the dreams? Paro. You have no idea. I have no idea. You know why?
Sleeping, dreaming.
Well, yeah, he wasn't doing anything. He was just watching, just a passive observer. Right? That's also a difference. That a Jew has to realize that to achieve things in the world, you have to work. You have to go out and you have to get your hands dirty. You've got to bend down on your knees and you've got to bind the sheaves. Right? So this is some of the differences between the dreams. Now, let's move on to the interpretation of the dream, and what Paro says at the end. What?
I find
17
that,
years old, right?
amazing that he was so young. So this gift of explaining dreams, interpreting dreams, started with Yosef at a very young age.
At 17?
Yeah, 17.
Well, when he was sold into slavery, he was 17.
Yeah.
But at this point,
This is the first time he had a dream.
when is he now? When he stands before Pharaoh,
It's
how old is he?
older.
He's another 12, 13 years older. So he's now about 30.
So
He's now 30. He's not such a young sort of teenager.
Prophecy,
Oh yeah, brilliant guy.
you know.
No, it is well, interesting. Not so much prophecy at this point, but intelligence and a certain ability. But I'm
It's
gonna.
not a prophecy.
I want to ask you. Well, look, dreams, are they considered prophecy? I don't think necessarily that. Maybe they're in a very small aspect of prophecy, right? Because remember, when Joseph dreams his dreams, his father said, he told him off, "Why are you telling me these dreams? And we're going to come back down to you," because he saw that it was making the brothers jealous. Oh, that's all I need. You know what I mean? Right? So he told, "I give up. The kid's going to hate him more." So at least okay, fine. So but then he says, "Well, Habib Shoma." But in his heart, he kept it because he knew there's something. This was a kind of miniature prophecy. Yeah. But now interesting. It says he was on verse 46, page 274. By the way, it says he was 30 years when he stood before Paro. Okay. Now, if you look at the top of that page, page 274, 275, look what it says, verse Lamed Zayin. After Yosef gives all his interpretation, and the interpretation is, it says, Vayitev Adova ba'enei Paro. Paro was, I like that. And all the servants, and they all say, yeah, right, nice one, good one, yes. Yasha koyach. You can imagine all the non-Jewish people saying Yasha koyach. Vayomer Paro lavadov. Paro says to his servants, wow, this guy is absolutely awesome. The Spirit of God in him. Whoa! And all of a sudden, he makes him into prime minister, and he gives him the ring, and So now the question is, there's a couple of questions here that many Meforshim have said. What is Paro so impressed about, for crying out loud? What's he so impressed about? Anybody could. I've got 3 questions for you. Why is he so impressed? 7 fat cows, 17 cows. Cows represent food. Wheat represent food. 7 years. Like numbers represent time. Like we had the 3 days. So 7. So 7 this, 7 that. I mean, you don't necessarily have to be the world's greatest dream interpreter to dream it, to explain this. It sort of sounds kind of normal. A normal interpretation. It's not like, whoa, like an amazing interpretation.
But he didn't understand it himself, Paro. So, he must have thought.
All right. Okay. So the question is more actually on the dream interpreters. The dream interpreters. The dream interpreters. Sorry, I'm going to give the second question, which is related. The dream interpreters, they were also impressed, but why didn't it occur to them? If these guys are the professionals, okay, and said, Paro. He's not so bright about dreams, whatever. But the dream interpreters, the pros, right, the PhDs, yes, shouldn't they have figured that one out? It says, interestingly enough, that what did they say? And this is why Paro did not like their dream interpretations. They said, Paro says you're gonna have 7 daughters, and you're gonna bury 7 daughters. That's what he said. That's what Rashi brings them. That's what they said. The Midrash, by the way, interestingly enough, says another thing. you're gonna have you're gonna win 7 wars against 7 countries, and you're gonna lose 7 wars against 7 countries. Right? Now Rashi doesn't bring that one. That's another little PS question. Why does Rashi only bring out the daughters? But why couldn't they figure out what Yosef said? These guys are the pros. Right?
Because only Hashem can
Well,
make
you're all
it
answering.
happen.
Yes, exactly.
Everybody's answering together. Right? Okay, but if this was not okay, it was a gift from God. But isn't it, like we just said before, isn't it kind of pretty seichel-dik, normal to interpret what he's saying? What was this is such a great godly thing?
Does it have to do with going from
It isn't.
plenty to famine? And
It is to do with the famine, but
Yeah, but
even that's
not-
obvious. That's obvious. Why?
Yeah.
Why couldn't the dream interpreters figure that it's about 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine? Finished. It's a simple. It's a no-brainer. It's a doddle. But yet they didn't figure that out. Why? Why did they not figure that out? Why did they not use that interpretation?
why?
I think
I'm going to answer the questions. Don't worry. Once you guys have given up, once you ladies have all given up.
Because Hashem,
Wait a minute, Denise. Sorry, something's just in front of you. No, it's okay. Go on.
I'm thinking of Pharaoh who have a Hakumim, who have his own
Yeah.
magicians. These magicians are using the Tumah, so to speak, to explain and to do magic, and we will see it with the Moshe, that the way they are operating is very different from the way Yosef is operating.
Yeah, but that's
So the magician. So you're comparing the magician's power.
no. These were
The
not.
way they're explaining what.
No. This is not magicians. The magicians were more to do with the tricks later
Okay,
with
but-
Moshe.
but
These
these
are
people-
interpreters.
Interpreters.
They're a special poetry. In other words, they were magicians, but these people
So these
were.
people are not like special, people which Pharaoh has chosen to interpret the dream. He obviously regards them like a magician. Otherwise, how can anybody just interpret a dream? Not just anybody can interpret it.
Well, it says that. Okay, but that's what it says. That Rashi says that by Kroza Chatumim Sraim, there's Kol Chachamel, right? The Chatumim were magicians, and the Chachamel, the wise sages of Egypt, right? Now this wasn't because this was not an aspect of magic. This is an aspect of wisdom.
Yeah. Oh, so
So all the Chachamel, they couldn't figure it out.
it's like Ruach
But,
HaKodesh or something.
No, on the contrary, it's not Ruach HaKodesh. It's a matter of Chachma.
Just
It's Chachma.
like intuition.
Well,
So
look,
interpreting the dreams of Chachma,
it is a
so
Chachma.
it's not a nebuah.
No,
Yeah, that's what I
no,
thought. Okay, well, thank you.
The dream may be a certain miniature form of
It's not a
nevuah.
crystal ball type of
It-
thing.
No.
What those magicians
What I'm
were
trying to
doing.
explain, it's that may be a miniature form of nevuah, but to interpret that nevuah, you need chachma.
Ah,
You need to understand what the nevuah is.
oh, I see.
Because it's not. You don't need nevuah to interpret nevuah. You don't.
Chachma
You
to
need
interpret
chachma to
the
interpret
nevuah.
what the nevuah is. But so again, back to the question: they had so many chachamim and so many wise sages. Why didn't they figure that out?
So you have a Chachma.
But they did have chachma. But why didn't they use that chachma in this way? Yes. Why did the chachma not reveal to them the simple interpretation which Yosef was able to offer? Right? The simple interpretation. Before you, Denise, I'm going to ask the final question because otherwise we'll never get to the answers here. Right? Let me just give the final question. The final question is, Yosef, after he gives interpretation, yes, what does he start doing? He starts telling Pharaoh what to do. By the way, Your Majesty, you should appoint somebody over this. You should do this, do that, do this, do that. He should do this, he should do that. Like, excuse me, I beg your pardon. What was Joseph supposed to be doing in that time? He's supposed to be giving an interpretation.
Right.
And what is he doing? Giving advice of state? Advice of state? What's this? This is a chutzpah. This is a chutzpah that Yosef, who's a slave, he just had, he was 5 minutes old, he was a smelly slave in a pit, right? And now he's already, looks like he's running the show. What kind of a nonsense is this? Right? That's the last question. Okay, Denise, very quickly, and then we have to go to the answers. Otherwise, you won't be up. You know what I mean? You're not going to. Yeah. What did you want to say?
I just wanted to say that when Yosef attributed his ability only that it was Hashem that was doing it, not him, and Hashem's the only one who can make the dreams come true. If Hashem's so it was a foregone conclusion in a way that the outcome of the dream was going to happen. Well, and that's probably why he could go on and give the advice.
Well, okay, so what you're trying to say is that whatever Yosef would have said would have just come true anyway. So what difference is it? If he's giving
but those other Egyptian people, they wouldn't have had that.
No, look. The fact that he mentioned the fact that he mentioned Hashem, okay, was a wonderful, beautiful aspect of his humility. That he's always mentioning Hashem's name. It's not me, it's Hashem, right? But of course, we all know that great people do not ascribe greatness to themselves. Yes? That's true humility. Moshe Rabbeinu, he was the most humble person on earth, and yet he was the greatest prophet. Remember, he's saying, "Well, I'm not a big prophet as myself," right? So the fact that he was ascribing it to Hashem does not take away from the fact that there was a certain amount of wisdom involved here. There was a certain amount of wisdom.
But Hashem could have changed the outcome.
Sorry?
Hashem could have changed the outcome.
What do you mean he could have changed?
Well, he can do anything. So
of course Hashem could do anything, but Hashem sent the dreams. And he sent the dreams to Paro for a purpose, for a reason. Right? Right or wrong? So Yosef comes along and he reveals what that reason is. We don't need to over-analyze this. This is very simple. Pharaoh, God has a message. He sends the dreams to Paro. So what does he do? It's like time management here. He communicates the message about what needs to be done, right? Because what's coming, and he saves Yosef at the same time, right? So what's the problem? The question is, how did it happen this way? How is it again that the Egyptian Chacham did not really seem what apparently was a very simple interpretation? Really, that's not, apparently it's a simple interpretation. Okay. And what has Yosef got with all this? And why did they? And why is he giving advice left, right, and center? Okay, let's quickly try and see if we can get a little bit pick through this answer. The dream itself was not a lot of a calculus, quantum mechanics dream. It was a very sort of, actually, in a way, it was quantum mechanics. I'll tell you. Well, it didn't seem complicated. It was, in a sense, a simple message. And the Chachomim, the Egyptian dream interpreters, could well have interpreted the way that Yosef did. The reason they didn't was for one simple reason. The Rebbe gives this explanation, by the way. It's because there was a major problem with interpreting the dream as a sign of plenty and famine. What was the problem with that? You know what the problem with that? That is the obvious interpretation. But there was a major problem with that. The problem was, look at the dream. 7 cows come out of the river, right? And they stand by the river. And then what? You have 7 skinny cows coming out. And they're both standing together. Well, that's a bit of a problem.
Where are they coming from?
Not where they're coming from. How are they standing together? If you have 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine, you understand. But there's a chronological, right? But here you didn't have that. You had 7 and 7. Well, they're both simultaneously at the same time. You can't have famine and plenty at the same time. That was the problem with the dream. That was why the professionals couldn't figure this out, because you can't have family. They wanted to do that, but then how do you explain this? The synchronization, the simultaneousness, if there's such a word, or simultaneity, or something, whatever. How do you explain that? And that's why they came up with a different interpretation. What did they say? 7 daughters the Pharaoh's going to have, and 7 daughters he's going to bury. Well, that could be simultaneous. How can that be simultaneous? Very simple. How many wives do you think Pharaoh had?
100.
Well, at least more than 1 or 2, right? However many he had. So he had, right? I mean, Shlomo had 1,000, right? So King Solomon.
2,000.
1,000. I've told you a million times, don't exaggerate. What's the matter with you?
I thought it was 2.
No, it was 1,000. Yeah. Anyway, that was a different view. No. Anyway, look, the kings in those days had lots of wives. Pharaoh probably had lots and lots of wives. So therefore, they were having probably children on a regular basis, right? If he's got lots of wives, they're having lots of children. So it's entirely possible to say that if he's having lots and lots and lots of children, it could be at one point it's going to be 7 being born, and God forbid, another 7 who are going to die. So that's a simultaneous. You understand? So that's how they interpreted that one. Well, and that's why, by the way, the answer to PS why they didn't put the second interpretation about the wars, because it's a bit strange to say that you're going to have 7 wars, you're going to win 7 wars at the same time as lose 7 separate wars. I mean, if you're a strong nation, you're going to win the wars, finished, right? It's winning wars and losing wars at the same time. Again, that is a bit of a problematic. So that's why Rashi leaves that out. That's what those, because they were. So now we come now to the genius of Yosef. Yosef understood. How did he explain the simultaneousness, the synchronousness, or the synchronization of these two? He said like this, and that was why he was telling Paroi the advice he was giving. He was saying, look, you can't just look at this as a matter of 7 fat years followed by 7 lean years. No. You can't do that. You have to understand that during the 7 years, the fat years, you have to be constant. Your mind has to be thinking about the 7 years. You have to be on the ball, and they have to coexist at the same time, right? It's no good just having a good time, putting away a few bob and hoping for the best, which is, because you always have this sort of boom-bust situation. That's what people say, put away some money. But the point is, if you are constantly thinking about the family, therefore the years of plenty are going to help, they're going to matter, and they're going to solve the years of famine. That's why you need to appoint somebody. You need to appoint somebody who's constantly aware that the 7 years of famine are coming. Got to be in your mind the whole time.
Isn't that what Pharaoh was
Of course it was. No, it wasn't what he was thinking. Wait. It wasn't what he was thinking. This was what Yosef told him. This is the greatness of the interpretation. It didn't occur to people that. It didn't occur that people should be thinking completely about the 7 years of famine that are coming up during the 7 years of plenty. When times are good, you have a good time. Finished. Okay, we're going to have to worry about the famine when they come. But meanwhile, eat, drink, and be merry, because for tomorrow, ... Right? Yeah, very good. So, very cute. It's the diet. Okay. So this was why Yosef was offering an interpretation. He wasn't being chutzpahdik. He was saying this is part of the dream, that they're going to coexist. So you need somebody in charge who understands this and who's got the plan from tomorrow, right? From the time, because Hashem's doing this now, right? 2 dreams meant this happening. He's ready to do it right away. So therefore, that is why his interpretation, that power is, and all the sages that said, the Egyptian sages, now we understand the simultaneous. That was the genius of Yosef. That was the genius of Yosef, to be able to interpret and understand why and how the dream fit. And that's why Paro said, and all the sages, all their chachamim, their wise people said, eat a man.
Yeah.
He the man. That makes sense. That makes sense. You got it? You got that?
So he understood his dream, obviously, what simultaneous means. Did he always have that deep understanding of his own dream?
Of his own, I would say so.
Even when he was young?
Well, again,
His
No,
relative.
again, everybody understood what those dreams meant.
But did he understand?
Well, look, everything's bowing down for him. You don't
no.
need much offer for that.
No, I know what you're saying.
It wasn't
No,
just
but
like
he could have been
ego.
a child and saying, well, maybe it doesn't mean anything.
No, he was over
No.
17.
He was a 17-year-old who was very confident in his own. I think he had to learn a bit of humility.
Yeah.
But at that point,
He probably learned
he was
that.
like most teenagers, are pretty full of themselves. And, he used to with the hair and everything, right? He was,
Peppered on.
he was, And so at that time, I'm sure he was, that's why he was telling his brothers, what are you starting up with me for? Why you're going to come bow down to me? What, you know what I mean? Like they saw it as arrogance. He just saw it as fact. You guys are going to bow down to me. I dreamt it. Okay, Hashem showed me the dream. That's the reality. So just get over it. Do you know what I'm saying? So, but some people are. It's funny, They say that there were these two very. There was this famous, incredibly famous basketball star. I forgot his name. Michael Jordan, maybe something like that, right? And then there's a very famous football star, right? Called I think his name is Abramovich. He's not Jewish, right? He's not Jewish. He's Abramovich. And this Abramovich is very cocksure. He's a good footballer, very good footballer, and he's very sure of himself. So it says. So at one point there was there was always like a kind of a rivalry, a friendly rivalry. So one day, this guy Michael Jordan decided, you know what, he's going to reach out to his friend.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. I know. I hope we didn't just start. And he says, maybe that's what happens after now. So he decided to send him a T-shirt, a shirt of his number, of his basketball thing, and he sent it to this guy Abramovich. Yeah, like I'm sending you a T-shirt. You know what I mean, right? That's. They were both kind of big sort of ego shots. Here's my shirt. Here's a present for you. So you know what this footballer did? He signed his name on the T-shirt and sent it back to him. Now, is that genius? Is that genius? Right? You want to sort of give somebody so here's somebody obviously who doesn't have issues with self-esteem. Do you know what I'm saying? That's a good one. Yeah. Anyway, let's just do very little bit of Hanukkah. We're almost near the end, but I feel since it's Hanukkah, we should say Hanukkah something at least. Oh, of course, tonight. That's right. Tonight we have the meeting at the town hall, outside the town hall, with the mayor and the councillors and Franco.
And the soup is boiling right now.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Everyone.
And every
But don't turn up late because you miss it. It's only going to be 20, 25 minutes. And you want to get some of Mrs. O's famous soup, come tonight.
Which one?
We should have sold that.
Better not.
Mrs. O's butternut squash soup. Yeah, the last one. Now, so, oh yes.
We were there.
They always come.
Yeah.
Where were we? You were there.
We were.
Of course you were.
No, we weren't there.
Oh,
So we were in Brent.
Oh, we were.
No, I think Rabbi Shlomo was there last week. Yeah, Rabbi Shlomo. He did the soup. We probably made the soup. Anyway, Hanukkah, we have this thing called Al Hanissim. We say Al Hanissim. Everybody knows in prayer books, Al Hanissim. We thank God for the miracles. And if you read it, one of the things that it says is that there were 5 things that it says that Hashem did 5 miracles in a way, right? So God says, I'm going to do it in English. That you delivered the strong in the hands of the weak. You delivered the many in the hands of the few. We're talking about the Greeks, right? You delivered the impure into the hands of the pure, the tzaddikim, the righteous into the hands of the righteous. The wicked in the hands of the righteous, and the intentional sinners into the hands of the ones who are learning your Torah. Now, these 5 levels, we can understand the first 2 because, weak, few. So that's a miracle. You know what I'm saying? For weak people to win a war, that's a big deal. For few people to beat, the massive Greek fighting machine was a very big miracle. Everybody holds it. But what is a miracle in terms of the last three is a bit strange because, the impure into the hands of the pure, wicked into the hands of the righteous, intentional sinners into the hands of those who learn your Torah. Those aren't really a function of strength, power. That is just a kind of a description about this one and that one. So what's the great miracle over there? What is the great miracle of these last three? You understand the question? It doesn't seem. It's not a miraculous expression. It's just a sort of a descriptive fact. So the Rebbe says, actually, these last three are not talking about the miracle of the Jews over the Greeks. The last three is actually talking about the miracle of the Jews over the Jews.
Oh.
What does that mean, the Jews over the Jews? Well, the Rebbe says that if you look into the history, you find that in the times of the Greeks, the majority of the Jewish people were in fact the Hellenists. The vast majority had become sympathetic to the Greeks. And the Maccabees were a small minority. Those who were sticking with Torah mitzvahs were a small minority. So the fact that Hashem made a miracle and the small people, we won, even against the majority of the Jewish people who were they weren't pro-Torah, they weren't pro-Judaism. They were like, I don't know what, reform, what do you want to, but so this itself was a miracle, that Hashem should hear our prayers of the minority over the majority, right? That was like a big deal, okay? And that is, some people say the same thing about Mashiach. They say, well, look, the people who keep Torah mitzvahs, they're in a small minority. The majority of the Jews don't do that. So how can Mashiach come? Hanukkah, it was a salvation for everybody. Yeah. But it was the small, Hashem helped the minority win over the majority. Okay? And that made it, so the same thing certainly can happen. Even more so when the real will of the minority, of the majority, is they want to do Torah mitzvahs. The reason that most people nowadays are not keeping Torah mitzvahs is not because they're anti. It's not because they are against this Judaism. They don't know better. They didn't have a proper education. They are literally as though they have been captured amongst the Gentiles. They don't know. They don't know anything. So they're opposing. Not even opposing it really. It's just don't know one way or the other. So how much more so then us who, the minority of the people will be able to overcome and will be able to help save. And the whole world will be saved, the whole Jewish world. And also just one final PS to that even in our own personal lives, a person can think, look, what I do spiritually in the week, in the day, it's very small. Okay, I come to Rabbi Overlander, share, just about. As I always tell you, if you're late, you're still there. Right? You're still there. And look, all of us, with the amount of time we spend doing mitzvahs directly in the day is very small. We daven, 10 minutes, half an hour, then we do a bit of learning, another 20 minutes, half an hour, come to a shir an hour, what I mean? Every day. Now, think about in a day, what we're doing for ourselves and for our bodies and for our livelihoods is probably, including sleep, is probably about 21 to 22 hours, right, a day. So a person could think, so what's the spiritual stuff? Is that really, it's so small. But then look at the Maccabees. They were small, but they saved the whole day. So when a person does the spiritual part, that in a sense redeems the rest of the day. And it makes the rest of the day meaningful. So even though you may be involved in all that stuff, but when you focus on that good, holy, special spirituality, that in a sense is a redemption for the rest of the day and the rest of the week and the rest of the year.
The redemption part.
Small and mighty, exactly. They're mighty in the hands of the weak, and they're numerous in the hands of the few. Exactly. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for listening. And we do hope to see you again in Mitzvah Hashem next week. Denise, okay? Are you feeling?
It's nice to see you.
Yes, there you go. You can say hello to us. Hello, Denise. Stop recording here at this point.
Yeah,
Can't hear you.
I have fresh.
Yeah, Denise, we missed you.